story. We'll come back to that because it sounds like something to do.
I hope you do.
I'll defer to Senator Markwayne Mullin.
Well, thank you. And considering the chairman doesn't want to hear any of that information because I believe he's pretty biased in his opinion already, Mr. Schultz, I'll give you an opportunity to finish that if you'll do it quickly.
Thank you very much. So, as you might imagine, we're very curious to understand what happened in Buffalo. And we later found out that this individual, which was hired in 2020, was paid for and under the employment of the union that was basically trying to organize Starbucks. We later found out there was more than one person. And so you might want to ask yourself, where's the fairness, right, the objectivity, and the integrity of what we're talking about here today?
No, and I mean, if you're anti-union as a CEO, you're anti-union busting, or you're for union busting. I'm not saying you're anti-union. I'm just saying that it seems like to me, as a former CEO, not nearly at the success that you were at, sir, and I'm not trying to defend your company because, quite frankly, politically, we're on totally different ends of the spectrum. And so the irony of this hearing is actually kind of funny. And I do want to point out some hypocrisy about this hearing with the chairman. And it's not trying to get personal. All this information is going to be very public. But the fact that you can't defend your company because you want to have a good relationship with your employees and you believe in employee value, which we all do. Any CEO knows that the success of our companies are based on our employees. We get that. But it seems like unions today, all they want to do is fight with their employees or their employer, the same employer that is hiring those team members, and that friction causes a very volatile and tough workplace. And if the company and the employees aren't in the same boat, rowing in the same direction, then neither one can be successful. And unions themselves, if you're part of a union, you can never be an executive, you can never be a manager, and never be a CEO. And if you can't be an executive or a manager or the CEO, then how are you actually going to implement the changes that the unions want in those positions to begin with? And it seems like they actually hold back their team members. Mm-hmm. But I take offense to the chairman pointing out that all CEOs are corrupt because they're millionaires. You know, if you make a lot of money, you're corrupt. It's bothering to me because, Mr. Chairman, you yourself have been very successful. Rightfully so. Glad you have been. You've been in office for 28 years, and you and your wife have immersed a wealth of over $8 million. And in fact, your quote on being wealthy and being a millionaire was, well, if you write a bestseller, you can be a millionaire too. If you can be a millionaire, why can't Mr. Schultz and other CEOs be millionaires and be honest too? If that's the case, then why is it that Mr. Schultz, who actually creates jobs and a bestseller of a book, isn't creating any jobs? Why is it that he's corrupt and you're not? Why is it that all CEOs are corrupt because they're wealthy, and yet our chairman, who is wealthy, and I'm glad you are, you're not? Guys, the government's role is to create an environment for entrepreneurs, for go-getters, for world changers, to be successful in life. The U.S. government is designed for people that want to succeed can. We can go out and achieve anything that we choose to. But when you lean towards socialism, what you think is government is the answer and unions are the choice. And if you're against us, then you're dead wrong and you must be corrupt. That's not the world we're living in. That's not the America that we believe in. And I'm not against unions. If you want to choose to be in a union, be in a union. But if you choose not to, then you choose not to. And that's why I'm good with right-to-work states. That's honestly why unions actually thrive in Oklahoma, and we're right-to-work states, because it creates a happy environment and a good environment, because employees get to choose what they want to be part of. And the employer can have a say in it. What is wrong with choice? What is wrong with employees having a choice? What is wrong with the CEO defending his company and openly saying that he is providing good benefits and paying higher than everybody else? But yet, if you're not part of a union, you're also paying starvation wages. What hypocrisy. What bias. Chairman, You are chair of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee. We shouldn't have a biased approach. We should have what's best for America and all those that want to thrive and work in it. And so while we politically disagree, Mr. Schultz, I applaud you for your success. And I applaud all the CEOs out there for their success. And all the employees that work hard, that's in the same boat, that's making their companies great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, let me respond. The senator did mention my name, I think. And I think you got an all-time record here. You've made more misstatements in a shorter period of time than I have ever heard.
Please correct
Well,
me,
if I'm
because
worth
it's all
$8 million,
public.
excuse me.
It's all public.
Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right? Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
If I'm worth $8 million, that's good news to me. I'm not aware of it. That's a lie. All right? Number two.
Part of public records.
You're probably looking at some phony right-wing internet stuff. It ain't true.
No,
All right? You should read beyond that. It is not true.
it's
All
part
right?
of public records.
No, it is not public record.
Okay. Well, you made
It is
1.7 million on your book.
public record.
You made
All right?
1.7
It is-
on your book.
Excuse me. I've got the mic now. Number
you not
two,
make the statement
I
that if
have
you want to
the
be a
mic
millionaire?
now. I've got it.
Did you
had
not
your
make
time.
that statement?
You had your time.
Okay.
All right? You're not telling the truth. Second of all, you got no evidence that I have ever said that all CEOs are corrupt. I have never, ever said that.
Probably not all, but every time you talk
probably
about
not,
CEOs,
then
you do
shouldn't
say that.
Say it. Furthermore, what this hearing is about is whether or not you talk about being pro-union. Really, what this hearing is about is whether workers have the constitutional right to form a union. The evidence is overwhelming, not from me, but from the National Labor Relations Board, is that time after time after time, despite what Mr. Schultz is saying, Starbucks has broken the law and has prevented workers from joining unions to collectively bargain for decent wages and benefits. Senator Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Schultz, I want to begin.
Senator Mullin.
Thank you, and thank you for being here today. It was a pleasure meeting you. I do have to kind of address something beginning. Our chairman came out with a very strong comment, daring everybody basically that they disagreed with your qualifications to say it with a straight face. And as always, he always talks about starvation wages, in which I thought, man, he's really setting the tone here. But then I'm just starting to figure out that's just your personality. No offense there, but this is your personality. But then I still understand. I don't understand the lack of knowledge, of basic knowledge, when this is the health, education, labor, and pension. The basic knowledge of understanding what labor cost really is. As a business owner who's employed truly hundreds of people, labor is always going to have a beginning wage, and everything else goes from there. So you can't call a beginning wage a starvation wage if there's always going to be a beginning wage. I don't care what industry you're in, it's always going to start something. The product that industry is making is going to adjust whatever the cost of that final product is. It's going to be delivered to everybody. But that is actually what an apprenticeship program is too, because that's supposed to get people into the program to start working towards that. But yet apprenticeship programs themselves can actually be kind of restrictive, because a lot of people that are entering these workforces that are going to maybe start requiring apprentices, they didn't want to go to college. But yet we keep expanding apprenticeship programs from 1 year to 2 year to 3 year to some apprenticeship programs are 4 years and longer. And individuals like, look, I didn't want to go to college. That's why I entered this workforce to begin with. So we got to think about what we're talking about when we start expanding apprenticeship programs. But it also understands the lack of people that's running these programs, running the industry, of actually understanding what business is like, which is why so many of us, why you are seems like a super nice individual, and we had a great conversation. That doesn't mean being nice qualifies you to be Secretary of Labor, because if you don't have that basic understanding of knowing what it's like, then how can you relate and truly represent both sides? For instance, have you ever been an employer of a business? It's yes or no. I'm sorry.
I have not, Senator,
Okay.
but my parents have, and my family is.
Have you ever done it?
I have not.
Then you don't understand what it's like, how hard it is to actually sit awake at night trying to figure out how you're going to man a job when you don't have the people there and you know you're going to have to do it. Have you ever created or balanced a budget for a business? Just yes or no. These are yes or no's real quick. I want to run through them as quick as I can. I'm going to take that as a no. Have you ever acquired or sold a business?
I have not, Senator.
Okay. Have you ever had to raise capital in order to launch a new business?
I have not, Senator.
Which goes back to one of your comments that you wrote about that I'll get to later. Have you ever had to provide quarterly reports to shareholders?
Senator, I have not done these things.
And I'm just going, this is qualifications, because the chairman said, can you actually say with a straight face if you're qualified on this? And these are points we're trying to make. Have you ever decided which health insurance plan you're going to offer to employees?
Senator, if I may,
I'm just going through these because I'm making a point. The chairman's the one that threw down the gauntlet and said, I dare anybody to say this without a straight face. I'm just trying to make a point here. So have you ever?
I have not chosen a health insurance plan for.
Have you ever had an employee file workers' comp that you had to either work with or fight against?
As an employer, no.
Do you know what a workers' comp experience mod is?
I do, based on my work in
But you
government.
never had to actually apply it to your bottom line to figure out what your profit margins and bottom line is going to be. Have you ever filed taxes on behalf of business?
I have not, Senator.
Have you ever had to comply with federal regulations on a small business?
No.
So it's really hard to understand what it's like when you're getting mandated and regulations coming at you. Have you ever had your business model threatened by the federal government's overreach of regulations?
No, Senator.
I have, and that's what drove me here today. And when you have someone like yourself that makes a comment like this, like you did in 2005, it says the very definition of a corporation as an entity that is created to permit maximum income and designed to insulate individuals who profit from the liability. That's your opinion about a corporation. Do you still stand by that?
So I don't remember when I wrote that or the context in which I wrote it. I don't.
It doesn't. There is no context to which this can be taken out of context. Do you still believe that corporations are just the insulation to shield individuals like myself? Because we don't have any liabilities, and we have no financial liabilities at all as a corporation, as an owner at all. I mean, I don't understand that. But do you still stand by that comment? Yes or no?
I will tell you what I do stand by, Senator.
No. I just need yes or no because I'm about ready to run out of time, and I got one more question. Do you stand by that comment?
I do stand by the important role that both employers and employees play in our
American
economy.
Society was built on white privilege and systemic racial subordination, to which you've written also?
Can I say what I do stand by, Senator?
No, those are your comments. I'm asking you, do you still believe on both those comments? You wrote those in your comments. Do you stand by those comments or do you not? You wrote them. Do you stand by them or not?
I believe that we.
No, ma'am. I'm just saying, do you believe what you said? It's a yes or no.
I will say this, Senator. I think it's a longer conversation.
If you can't answer a heck no on this, Ms. Sue, then that's a huge problem. Because just like our chairman sometimes leads with the gavel with a biased opinion towards labor, you also will lead the secretary, as Secretary of Labor or Labor Department, with bias. Because you cannot say those type of statements like that and represent all sides. With that, I yield back.
Senator Cassidy.
I defer to Senator Markwayne Mullin.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for our panelists for being here. I'm going to address a question real quick about why is it so expensive. 14 years ago, my wife and I wanted to provide health care for our employees. It was actually going to be a benefit because we were having a lot of employees miss work because they couldn't find child health care. So we went through the process of trying to set it up, and it was crazy how expensive it was. Then outside of that, the liability that it brought to our company honestly outweighed the benefit of it. Because of how much regulations that we pour on these early child development centers, preschool, it makes it almost cost prohibitive. And so if we really want to fix cost, we should start looking at ourselves and seeing out a way that we can soften the amount of regulations and still keep our kids safe. Now, let me get to the point of my questions and kind of make a point here. When we're trying to federalize our education system, to me, it sounds like we're trying to move more towards socialism. Because when you federalize an education system, you're standardizing what you're going to be teaching our kids and taking the parents out of the ability to have a say in it. And so I have a lot of concerns by this, and it still baffles me that the chairman of our committee, Health Education, I'm going to put that big, Health Education, Labor, and Pension Committee, that was appointed by our Senate Democrats is a self-proclaimed socialist. I'm not just calling that. Chairman, you openly say that you're a socialist. In your book, Outsider in the House, the chairman says, Bill Clinton is a moderate Democrat. I'm a Democrat socialist. That's over our education system. I have a book here in front of me called Our Skin that has been endorsed by NACI. And I'm going to read exactly what this book says. You guys might find it interesting. A long time ago, way before you were born, a group of white people made up an idea called race. They sorted people by skin color and said that white people were better, smarter, prettier, and they deserved more than everybody else. This would be taught if we socialize our pre-K system. This would be taught.
Do you disagree with that findings in the book?
1,000%. How about we teach Jesus loves me? How about this? In teaching Jesus loves the little children, the lyrics go, red and yellow, black and white, they're all precious in our sight. Now, which one would you think would be better? I'll ask everybody on the panel, which is better to teach? This, that is a story that was made up to teach our kids, 3-year-olds who have no idea what race is, now all of a sudden is being taught that white people said this as a truth. Someone point at me that this being a truth, that white people developed race, that white people developed that all of a sudden that was our word that we developed. By the way, I'm Cherokee, Native American. I think we have experienced a little bit of racism before in my life, Chairman.
Senator Mullin.
So I ask everybody on the panel, which one is better to teach? This or the Jesus Loves Me lyrics? Ma'am, I'll start down here. Just tell me which one. I don't have time for an explanation.
What I'll tell you, Senator Mullin, is that what children in these early years develop
I
their
didn't answer
identity.
the question.
It's
the
important,
question is which
it's
one
important
do you
that our
think is better to-
classrooms are.
I'm just asking which one is better to
Let her answer the question, please.
my question is this.
She will
Which
answer
one
it
is
as
better?
she sees fit.
Which one is better?
It's important.
This?
It's important that children's identity
That's
and
not
language
answering my
and
question.
culture are recognized.
That's not answering my question.
And that's what creates
Ma'am,
strong executive
okay,
function.
if
and
you don't want to
good
answer my
development.
question, that's fine. Let's move on down the panel. Which one is better to be taught? This book or the Jesus Loves Me lyrics that says everybody's skin doesn't matter. They're all precious in His sight.
I think it's important to teach that all children are seen and valued for who they are, and that's
So,
what
but when you
Macy's
teach
research
this,
is
don't you
about.
think that other people are start saying that white kids are to blame?
I think it's
It's
important.
exactly what they're going to teach. It's exactly what it is, ma'am.
I disagree. First, it is important that we teach Jesus. And
Absolutely.
Jesus is what we teach.
So which one is
But
better?
the reality
This?
is,
So do you think this is
Could
the
she
right
answer
thing?
the question, please?
No, I don't want reality. I'm asking the question, which one is better? That's exactly what it is.
Got it on tape.
Misspoke. So what I'm saying is which one is which? Which one is better to be taught, Mr. Chairman? Is it this, or is it the Jesus?
Is your question directed to me or Ms. Woman?
Well, you keep interrupting me, saying they're not answering the question,
Wanna ask
and I
me the
wish
question?
you'd really stay out of
No,
my
no, no.
questions because
It's his
my
question.
time.
He gets to dictate it.
Which one?
Not dictated. Ask the question.
Which one?
Talking to Ms. Woman, right?
Yes,
as I stated, Jesus is always first.
absolutely. I agree with that. So let me end with this because I still have more time because the chairman kept interrupting me. I'm going to close with 2 quotes, okay? The first is from John Adams. It says, morality and virtue are the foundation of a republic and necessary for society to be free. The second one is from our socialist communist, Joseph Stalin, that says, education is a weapon whose effect depends on whose hands it is in and whom it is aimed. We got to be careful what we're trying to do here. With that, I yield back.
Senator Baldwin. Casey. Senator Mullin.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to make an open comment here. I kind of feel like hell's freezing over because Chairman Sanders and I actually agree on something, and it's that something needs to be done with PBMs. So I do appreciate you having this hearing and the order that we're having it, Chairman. That's actually a compliment coming from my side, if you can believe that. I want to point out this chart behind me. This is the integration chart where it starts showing how PBMs have integrated themselves and they've become their own customer, which is kind of like the fox guarding the hen house. And it's difficult when you start thinking about that Congress was actually wanted to help stand up the PBMs to help bring down cost. You've seen costs do nothing but skyrocket on prescription drugs. At the same time, you've seen that PBMs have become literally $1 billion industry. In the last 5 years alone, you've seen prescription drugs increase by 16%. At the same time, you've seen the net income of PBMs and their integrated companies grow substantially. Start thinking why. I mean, if the $1 billion industry has grown up, it's not because of taxpayer dollars. It's because it's got to be going to the drug cost. And if it's going to the drug cost, who's ultimately paying that price? Well, it's the consumer. Obviously, the money's got to be passed on to someplace. It's just retail politics, and it's retail consumers. The price has to be made up because every one of you guys are in business for profit, and I think that's great. That's called America. We're able to do that. But I want to kind of bring down on some things that need to be clarified. For instance, when Senator Marshall was asking the question of why is it that some drugs aren't able to make it to the market, and I believe it was said that they are if they're the lowest cost. But Mr. Hudson, when that comment was being made, you were shaking your head saying, because what Senator Marshall was asking is what prohibits drugs from coming to the market, especially competitive drugs, because everybody says competitiveness is what brings down the price, and I agree with that. But I don't think you actually agreed with, is it Joyner? With Mr. Joyner's answer when he said it's based on formula, whichever is the cheapest for the consumer. And as I was noticing, just reading your body language, you was going like this. Can you explain more from your perspective what prohibits drugs from coming to the market?
Yeah, I think what I was perhaps reflecting was a lack of unknown. Because, as I said, in 2018, we launched a lower price Admalog, in the insulin market. Last year, a lower price direct equivalent made in the same factory. And, you would expect if price was the answer, and perhaps we talk at slightly different terms, the use of cost versus price, I'm not quite sure what it means on both sides, but I'm reflecting on the fact that if the intent of the chair and everybody here is to lower the price of medicines, and we do, and it doesn't change for patients, I don't know.
So
why
you
that is.
brought a generic to the market, and that was significantly cheaper than the other one, but it didn't reflect the patient's payment?
It just didn't get listed in anywhere. If price is really the motivator, it would
That's
have been
interesting.
listed.
And who prevented that from being listed?
I was not part of that conversation.
But the PBMs are the ones that helped bring that to the market, right?
Well, my assumption is
Your assumption?
the PBM.
I think you're being
discusses
very
with the
politically polite here, and I appreciate that. But I think we can all read between the lines on this one. Mr. Ricks, when you're talking about rebate checks, because the comments were made earlier, because the question was asked about rebates, and our PBM officials over here, they were saying that the PBMs go to their customers, which I'm curious of who the customers are, because I think the public would assume that it goes to the public, to the individual, to the person buying the drugs. But I know I have 6 kids that seem to always be in the emergency room, that always seems to be getting prescription drugs of something, and I've never got a rebate check. So who's the customers? Where do you send your rebate checks to?
Yeah, thanks for the question. We send them to the PBMs, as mentioned.
But where does the check actually get mailed to? Does it get mailed to someplace inside the United
increasingly,
States?
we were instructed to send them to the GPO.
Where's the GPO at?
I think it was asked earlier, the various organizations you have up there.
But most of your checks, what country are they mailed to?
Well,
Outside the United States? Or
there are some that go outside the United States.
and a tune of how much, would you give me a guess?
Our total rebates in the United States for commercial that was paid to the major 3 last year was $8 billion.
Okay.
It's not a third, but it's roughly that.
And a big chunk of that goes outside the United States?
Several billion.
Goes outside the United States? But yet these are customers for inside the United States?
Yes,
Right? These are
correct.
rebates for customers.
U.S. access to U.S. formularies, yes.
But yet the rebate checks aren't actually staying inside the United States, the biggest chunk of them.
Correct, or a big chunk.
That's
yes.
interesting. That's interesting, too. I wonder why that is. And so when we start talking about customers for the PBMs, who are your customers that you're referring to that the rebates go to? Because you say the PBMs only keep 90, 97, 98, or you guys send out 97, 98% of your rebates, right? And the customers is the insurance companies, right?
So, Senator, our customers, so Express Scripts has over 2,500 customers. Many of them are employers, small, middle market employers, some large employers. Labor unions are our clients, public sector entities, and health plans.
And health plans, right?
Yes, self-insured, yes.
But also your insurance companies, right? Then the whole reason is to supposedly bring down premiums. But yet, if you look at this top line here where it says insure, the PBMs own the insurance companies that their rebates are going to. It's self-integrated. So you're rebating yourself. That is just, wow, great business model. And we wonder why prices are high to our consumers. And this is why the chairman and I actually agree on something. This isn't working for America. It's working for you all great. I mean, you guys are killing it. But if we're talking about bringing down prices, what have you all done to bring down prices? That was the whole reason why you guys were created, to bring down prices. We've seen nothing but them increase. It's not going to the pharmaceutical companies that are making it. It's not going to the pharmacists unless you own them. But if you own them, we really don't care if it makes it, because upstream or downstream, depending on where they are in the integration chart, that's where you're getting your money back. And you wonder why you're here? Are you actually serving your purpose? Heck no. You're not. And as I said before, it's like the fox guarding the hen house. You have literally forced us to make the changes. And in my private company, if I have an entity that's not being effective for what their intended purpose is, I would shut them down. And that's what I think the solution here is. With that, I yield back.
Moving to S567, the final bill for consideration today. And that is the Richard L. Trumka Protecting the Right to Organize Act of 2023. There is no manager's amendment. Are there any members who wish to speak or offer an amendment to S567?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Senator Mullin?
This amendment would change the name.
What's the number of your amendment?
S537, it's Mullin 1.
Okay.
Ready? Well, it comes at no surprise that Chairman Sanders, the lead sponsor of this bill, has a very different vision of America than I do. Chairman Sanders had introduced this bill as a union-backed solution in order to take on the corporate greed, quote, the billionaire class. It's interesting to me that he doesn't mention the millionaires class, considering that he's joined that himself. The bill, however, is not about increasing the quality of an employer-employee relationship or allowing the free market to lift millions of workers out of poverty. It's about increasing the power of union bosses, like the one that was here one time over the union bosses for the Teamsters, O'Malley, who quoted one time saying that he wants to bring the mob mentality back to the Teamsters. That's who you're empowering, Chairman. Eliminating states' right-to-work laws, which is what Oklahoma has, attacking employee privacy, and destroying successful business models like the franchise industry. That's why I'm offering an amendment to change the name of this bill to the Socialist Solutions for Labor Unions Act. I would urge my colleagues to vote for this amendment to align the bill's name with what it actually does. I yield back.
After serious consideration, I've decided not to accept that as a friendly amendment.
Well, what if we change it to your name?
My time.
Change it there.
This bill is supported by every union in America, by tens of millions of American workers, and by organizations representing many millions more. So I would respectfully decline to accept that amendment and urge a no vote when it comes up. Other amendments.